Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Bhat Paramahamsa Privrajacharya Asatarasata Kishimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnu Bhat Paramahamsa Privrajacharya Asatarasata Kishimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Sri Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki. Prem Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki. Gopi Gopinath Shamkund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki. Yamuna Mai Ki. Ganga Mai Ki. Mathura Vrindavani Ki. Mayapur Navadiptam Ki. Purushottam Chaitanya Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Tulsi Devi Ki. Samaveta Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki. Gaura Gaura Premanande. Oh glorious to assembled devotees. Oh glorious to assembled devotees. Oh glorious to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I can see that today's verse is not on the. We're up to 25 today. By my 1625. Sundays was 22. We're going back. We're going to go all the way back. We have to check that. Yesterday, Toshan Krishna, he did 17. Can you confirm, Prabhus, please? 18? Okay, that's okay. We'll go with the flow. Okay, no worries. Tvata Sanat. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16. Jay and Vijay cursed by the sages, text 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tvata sanatano dharmo rakshate tanubhistava dharmasya paramo guyo nirvikaro bhavan mataha. Tvata sanatano dharmo rakshate tanubhistava dharmasya parama guyo nirvikaro bhavan mataha. Tvata sanatana dharmo rakshate tanubhistava dharmasya paramo guyo nirvikaro bhavan mataha. Vaishnavas. Vaishnavi. Tata sanatana dharmo rakshate tanubhistava dharmasya paramaguyo nirvikaro bhavanmata tata sanatana dharmo tanubhistava dharmasya paramaguyo nirvikaro bhavanmata tata sanatana dharmo rakshate tanubhistava dharmasya paramaguyo nirvikaro bhavanmata. Word for it, pata, from you. Sanatana, eternal. Dharma, occupation. Rakshate, is protected. Tanubi, by multi-manifestations. Tava, your. Dharmasya, of religious principles. Parama, the supreme. Guhya, objective. Nirvikara, unchangeable. Bhavan, you. Mata, in our opinion. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. You are the source of the transcendental occupation of all living entities, and by your multi-manifestations of personalities of Godhead, you have always protected religion. You are the supreme objective of religious principles, and in our opinion, you are the inexhaustible and unchangeable eternally. Purport. The statement in this verse, Dharmasya Parama Guhyo, refers to the most confidential part of all religious principles. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of Lord Krishna in his advice to Arjuna is, give up all other religious engagement and just surrender unto me. This is the most confidential knowledge in executing religious principles. In Bhagavatam also, it is stated that if one does not become Krishna conscious after very rigidly executing one's specified religious duties, all his labor in following so-called religious principles is simply a waste of time. Here also, the sages confirm the statement of that the Supreme Lord, not the demigods, is the ultimate goal of all religious principles. There are many foolish propagandists who say that worship of demigods is also a way to reach the supreme goal. But in the authorized statements of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, that is not accepted. Bhagavad Gita says that one who worships a particular demigod can reach the demigod's planet. But one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead can enter into Vaikuntha. Some propagandists say that regardless what one does, he will ultimately reach the supreme abode of Personality of Godhead. But this is not valid. The Lord is eternal, the Lord's servitor is eternal, and the Lord's abode is also eternal. They are all described here as sanatana, or eternal. The result of devotional service, therefore, is not temporary, as is the achievement of heavenly planets by worshipping the demigods. The sages wanted to stress that although the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, says that he worships the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, actually the Lord is worshipable not only by the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, but also by the demigods. Translation again. You are the source of the eternal occupation of all living entities, and by your multi-manifestations of personalities of Godhead, you have always protected religion. You are the supreme objective of religious principles, and in our opinion, you are inexhaustible and unchangeable eternally. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. It's getting very cold here in Sydney. Very, very cold in the mornings. I hope you're all keeping warm. But the best way we can keep warm is by engaging in Krishna consciousness. It's like a warm hug on a cold winter's day, isn't it? So this practice of Krishna consciousness is meant for all times. There is no different dharma that applies in different occasions. And that is the purport of what Prabhupada is saying about Sanatana. Before diving in deep, we see here that the Lord has appeared in front of the doorkeepers Jay and Vijay and the Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, after a curse has been sent towards the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jay and Vijay. And that curse is cursing them to go into material world and remain there. And at that moment, they really fret their separation from Vaikuntha, from the Lord, because that's all they know. That is their constitutional position. And they bow down to the feet of the Kumaras and they say, please forgive us. And then the Lord appears. The Lord appears and he completely bewilders the Kumaras, who were at that point in very, very deep anger. They weren't allowed inside this Vaikuntha, and they're Brahmanas. And having been stopped and having sent that curse, they were in big frustration. And just the appearance of the Lord and the smell of his feet, which are completely decorated and bedecked with tulasi leaves, they become completely bewildered by the Lord. And then the Lord says to the Kumaras, mind you, everyone's watching. All the residents of Vaikuntha have followed the Lord, because wherever he goes, they go. And they're all watching. Even those in Shantaras, those who are in passive state, who are just watching from afar and singing the glories. Those who are in Dasya, who are very much in a servitorship mood of relationship with the Supreme Lord. And also Sakya Aishvarya, or one of friendship in opulence or in reverence. Those are all there. That makes up the moods in Vaikuntha Dham, and they're all watching, seeing what's happening. The Lord has met these 4 Brahmanas in the gates of Vaikuntha. What's happening here? And the Lord says in front of all of them, especially in front of Kumaras. And remember, the Kumaras, before smelling the tulasi leaves, who were they? They were Brahmavadis. They believed in the impersonal conception of the Lord. And they believed that was their dharma. But still they were searching for something. They knew that Lord Brahma, who was their spiritual master, had said something, and so they were searching for more. That's what brought them to Vaikuntha Dham. And the Lord says, let whatever my servants have done, let whatever servants be my action. Whatever offense they have committed towards you, let it be my action. Just like when a white spot of leprosy appears on the body, it infects the entire body. The actions of the servant is the actions of the master. And I'm willing to chop off my own arm if it's hurting the body. And I consider the Brahman as my own body. You are my body. These words have completely struck the Kumaras. And you can imagine if the Supreme Lord is saying these things. We don't hear these from the leaders in our times. Whatever they have done, it's my fault. Please accept. It's something we consider to happen in the army, but still it doesn't happen there either. This is the Supreme Lord. These actions that are committed by his marginal potency, the Supreme, the Tatastha Shakti. His actions, he's considering them to be actions of himself, especially in consideration of when one offends a Brahmana, Vaishnava, or defenseless creatures. And so, having heard this from the Supreme Lord, and knowing that the Lord doesn't just say things as poetry, he says things because he means it, they have gone completely into glorification of the Supreme Lord. And here they glorify him by saying He is the source of the eternal occupation. He's the source of Sanatana Dharma. And by His multi-manifestations, He protects that. He ensures that this eternal Dharma is a continued practice. It's not stopped. Because as we know in the material world, everyone has their own Dharma. Everyone thinks that they know what it is, what it will take for them. They will concoct many different methods in which they will consider to be one in which finds their own path. Everyone has their own path. I have my path, you have your path. Right? You've heard this before? I have my path. I've heard this a lot. I don't know if you go out on books, Prabhu? Yeah, you hear us. Oh yeah, I do this. I do some meditation. That's one way. I do some meditation. You hear this a lot. Oh yeah, I do this and I do that, and that's it. Because they've got to a point where they believe that that's their dharma. That's their duty that they must perform in order to find their position or find themselves and find their connection with others. But this process of them concocting material living entities, just concocting their own dharma. This is something that's completely outlawed at the start of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This kaitav, it's called kaitav dharma. Kaitav dharma means illegal. It's just illegal. It's not prescribed. It's cheaters. It's cheating dharma. Because to get to a position in which you yourself feel that you have your own dharma, which is separate to one which has been provided by a supreme authority, you have to cheat yourself first. You cheat yourself first. Because what you say to yourself is that I don't have any connection to the Supreme. You may say I'm not the Supreme, I'm not the spiritual spark, a part and parcel of the Supreme. You might say that there's no Supreme. And so you cheat yourself out of what your actual constitutional position is. And just the idea of being a spiritual spark, that itself is something that comes by anuman or logic. It comes by logic. You don't need to go to a Bhagavad Gita class, or it's recommended, but it's not required for one to actually get to a position. Hey, I'm not this body. I'm not this leg. I'm not this arm. I'm not this head. I'm not in this box up here that I always think I am. I'm a spiritual spark. I'm spirit. But still, people will concoct their own different processes, and it'll change over the periods of their lives. And then they'll say, that's my eternal part, that's my eternal prescribed duties. But Sanatan, the aspect of Sanatan Dharma, and this aspect is very much misconstrued, particularly in India. Sanatan Dharma, they will say, Sanatan Dharma, this is my eternal occupation, this is what we should always be doing. Sanatan Dharma, the idea is it's Sanatan, eternal, which means it existed before, it exists now, and will continue to exist in the future. It's always been there. There's been no change. There's been no messing with it. It's not come from somewhere. It's always been there. Right? So this idea of, we are getting Sanatan, people will say, your Sanatan Dharma you are getting from your spiritual master. You are getting from your so-called saints. But no, that's not the process. The process is that Sanatan Dharma has always been there. But sometimes it has to be revived because the chain has been broken. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, he says that Evam paramparam praptam imam rajasya vidu sakala neha mahato. By the process of time, this disciplic succession has been broken, meaning that this performance of Sanatan Dharma, which is passed down from guru to disciple, has been broken. But it doesn't mean that Dharma itself has disappeared. And to re-establish that process of religion, Dharma samstapanataya, Krishna says, he himself, he comes to re-establish that Sanatan Dharma. Re-establish, not to begin again, but to re-establish, to bring it again. Because there's been a breakage. And so here, that is what the Kumaras are saying. They're saying, you have always protected religion. How have you protected? By your multi-manifestations or personalities of Godhead. The Lord, He's so merciful that even though we, the marginal energies, His parts and parcels, that have rejected Him, essentially. To be here, we've rejected Him. We've rejected His desire for enjoyment with us. We've rejected His position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we've rejected all of His associates' mood of servitorship to the Lord. We rejected all of that. And we say that I have my own pastimes, I have my own disciples, and I will continue all of them myself. So that's our position. But the Lord is still so merciful that He Himself says, I will come down myself to this material world, even though I'm not touched by this material world, even though I'm not even engaged with this material world, still, but because my servants, because my dear sons and daughters are down here, I will come here to re-establish Sanatana Dharma. Because Sanatana Dharma isn't this kind of like Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is a relationship with the divine. Sanatana Dharma is a relationship with the divine. That's what this whole process is trying to inculcate within us. It's trying to re-establish our real relationship with the divine. Real relationship with Krishna. Real relationship with Krishna and all of His associates. Because only when we are situated in our constitutional position, do we actually feel a sense of value, a sense of purpose, a sense of connectedness. We feel protected, we feel sustained. And without that, we feel like a bicycle spoke that's not connected to the hub. If you've ever ridden a bicycle and the spoke comes out of the hub, the spoke comes out, you'll hear it as it rides through the road, and it's never comfortable. It always feels out of place. You have to stop the bike and put it, or if the chain goes loose on the bike, you can feel it. It's not going anywhere. We have to be connected in our real position for us, in order for us to feel those feelings of contentedness, protectedness, sustaining, love, warmth, as I was saying before. That's why I said it. Warmth. Here in this material world, away from Krishna, it's very cold, it's lonely, because we're all out for ourselves in one sense or another. That's to be a proper materialist, one has to be out for themselves. Because this idea of wanting your own enjoyment, that sense of enjoyment doesn't come if other people are enjoying the things you have and there's limited resources. You will want it for yourself. And so this very nature of being here in this material world, it requires that sense of wanting profit. And where there's profit, there's loss, there's greed. But the Lord still, even though that this is occurring here, He appears in so many multi-manifestations, so many different incarnations. He appears on this planet to re-establish religion. When Garga Muni comes to Vrindavan from Mathura, because actually Vasudeva speaks to Garga Muni and says, you should go to Vrindavan. He says, he kind of hints that his son is there. His actual son, born of Devaki and Vasudeva, is there in Vrindavan, being protected from Kamsa. So Garga Muni goes. He goes and he's welcomed at the door by Nanda and Yashoda. Great saint, they really treat him with so much respect, and they say, come in. Please, we'd like you to do the Garbha Samskara for our dear son, our dear Lalla, Krishna. And Garga Muni says, we shouldn't do this, because if we do the Garbha Samskara and we find out that he is Krishna, then Kamsa will come and he'll kill him. They say, okay, we don't need to do a big ceremony. We'll just do a small, little, and we'll find. And in that ceremony, as Garga Muni is looking at Krishna, he first obviously gives the various names of Baladev and Sri Balaram. His name's Ram, also Shankarshan. But then when he goes to Krishna, it says, Krishna, he has appeared. This boy, he has appeared before. He's appeared in a white. He's appeared in red. Rakta, he's appeared in red. He's appeared in nila, in green, or the color of Ram. And he's appeared also in a golden form. So these various forms that the Lord has appeared. And again, this is repeated again in the 11th canto of the various manifestations the Lord has taken specifically to enunciate the principles of religion in each and every yuga, or the yuga dharma, known as the yuga avatars. In various, like I said, there's Sanatan dharma, which is unchanging. But then within each time, place and circumstance and the occurrences within each yuga and the capacity of the living entities within each yuga and the consciousness that pervades at that time, there's certain prescribed duties that go along with that. Karma, prescribed duties that go along with that process. In Satya Yuga, the Lord appears as in his form to inculcate meditation, the one which one sits down and does not engage with the external and meditates on the Supreme Lord within himself, this Paramatma realization. And then in Treta Yuga, Yagya is performed, and the Lord appears as Yagya. This idea of sacrifice. Because the mantras the consciousness at the time was mantras, and they were able to pronounce these mantras so powerfully that what they were saying was actually appearing before them. That the demigods would be eating from the fire sacrifice. Whatever they offered, they would see the demigods partaking in the sacrifice. They would be sitting and partaking in the sacrifice. Now we don't see. We look around and we hope, please come, I hope you're here. Indra, I hope you're here. Ganesh, I hope you're here. We hope. But there that yagya was performed to perfection, knowing that the Supreme Lord is the ultimate benefactor of all sacrifices. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. That verse says he is the ultimate benefactor of yagya. And then in Dwapara Yuga, it is deity worship. And that's when the personal aspect is coming alive. You see, the personal aspect of worshipping the Supreme, the form of his Archa Vigraha, knowing that the Lord is non-different from his Archa Vigraha or his deity form. The Lord is right there before us, and he can perform service to them. You can dress them nicely. You can feed them. You can bathe them. You can celebrate them and glorify them. And it's exactly the same as being with the Lord. Deity worship. And then, of course, in Kali Yuga, the consciousness has degraded so far that we can't sit down and we can't meditate for long periods of time. We don't have the lifespan that they did in Satya Yuga to be able to get to a position where we sit still, let alone try to meditate on the Lord while we're sitting still. The powers of the mantras of the Sanskrit mantras that they used to in yagya, the bija mantras and the mantras which follow, the different shlokas that they narrate, they are no longer powerful. We can't do an Ashvamedha horse sacrifice, because in the horse sacrifice in those times they would chant the mantras, and the horse they would sacrifice the horses, meaning the horses would die. But in a real Ashvamedha sacrifice, the horses come back alive. That's the power of the mantra. They come back alive. Nowadays, if we did a horse sacrifice, Ashvamedha sacrifice, the horses don't come back. So it's not prescribed. Deity worship, it's still there. It's still there because Dwapara Yuga just finished 5,000 years ago. Just a little bit. Krishna was just here. The deity worship still remains, but only 500 years ago, the Lord appeared in his golden avatar, his Channa avatar, his secret. It's a big secret. Why? Because the Lord wanted to appear as a devotee of Krishna. And if it was known that the Lord was appearing, then everyone would go there and worship the Supreme Lord. And his mood of wanting to appear as a devotee and be a devotee of Krishna, that would be a bit disturbed. Whenever someone would say to Lord Chaitanya, "You are the Supreme Lord," he would crush his ears. Don't say it, don't say it. He would run away. Or servants would say, "Shh, don't say it, don't say it." Only to his intimate devotees, his intimate associates, would Lord Chaitanya reveal himself as the Supreme, like the Mahaprakasha Lila, where he sits on the throne of Vaikuntha and, "I am the Supreme Lord, worship me." But otherwise, he is completely engaged in being a servitor or servant of Krishna for our benefit, to establish the Harinam Sankirtan movement. That there's no other way. Harinam, Harinam, eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. That in this Kali Yuga, there is no other way of attaining the Supreme other than chanting the holy name. So that is the prescribed duty of this age. Why? What makes the chanting of the holy name something that we do in this yuga that wasn't the same in the other yugas? What's because the Lord personally appears as Harinam. Always, but particularly in this Kali Yuga, there's all the potency provided in the holy name. As we sing in Shikastakam, "Oh Lord, in these names you invested all your transcendental energies." There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. He's invested all his energy into it. What is investing all his energy to? He is his holy name. The Lord is his holy name. And so Lord Chaitanya, he's come to inculcate that movement of spreading the holy names far and wide. So everyone, because you know, Kali Yuga, the mentality is a bit degraded. Everyone's engaged in their own dharma. Everyone's engaged in their own different things that they're doing at this time. And so, in order to cause a change of heart, in order to surpass the mind which is disturbed, the senses which are always searching, and the intelligence which has not actually been sanctified, or intelligence which has not actually been grown properly. Like if you were growing a flower or some kind of seed, you would take care of it and you'd nurture it. But the intelligence has not been nurtured in this yuga. The intelligence has been spoilt from a young age. So to cut right through that and straight to the heart, the Lord appears as his holy name. And so we say a lot of the times, especially in outreach programs, we say, don't worry about how you sound, don't worry about what it's saying, don't worry about this, just let the sound enter your heart, let it sit there, and let it come back out through the mouth. Let it come back out through the mouth. Don't think too much, is what we say. Because the holy name performs its own, Harinam Prabhu performs his own pastimes like that. So powerful, so inspiring, yet we are so unfortunate, even though after hearing holy names, sometimes we have no attraction for them, right? You know, we chant every day and we try our best. Some days it just doesn't happen. But still, we can always appreciate the holy name, even just for that one. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you'll be chanting, and then you'll get to the last round, and or the last mantra, and you just don't know how you got there. So I've chanted the whole round as like autonomously, without even thinking or hearing. How did I get here? But still, if we chant that last mantra with such attention, with surrendering everything to the Lord, still that benefit is there. The Lord takes that. The Lord's so merciful. In these multi-manifestations of personality of Godhead, He protects religion. He protects Dharma. For who? Not for Him, for us. Because He knows that His sons and daughters should be with Him. And that idea of an eternal relationship with the Lord, and the sense of that there is a place where the Lord performs His pastimes, where all His associates come together and participate in those pastimes with the Supreme Lord, especially in the sense of not worshipping Him as the Supreme Lord, but as a friend, as a son, as a lover, that is something that didn't that wasn't so known to the general populace until Lord Chaitanya. And that is a big secret. Raja Guyam, Dharmasya Parama Guya, this most confidential part of all religious principles. When Lord Chaitanya went to Adi Keshav temple in South India and he obtained the Brahma Samhita, the most confidential Brahma Samhita, speaking about the Supreme Lord and his pastimes. Lakshmi Sahasrata Sambrahma Sevyamanam Surabhi Abhi Palayantam Goloka. He speaks about the land of Vrindavan, Chintamani Prakrasa Sadmashu Kalpa Riksha. This place its ground is just Chintamani stone. The actual place they walk is touchstone. You can change to anything, particularly gold and valuable jewels, just by touching it. The trees are desire trees. They're trees which produce the fruit of anything that you want. That there's so many servants, Lakshmis, which serve the Supreme Lord. Even here in the Kumaras worship the Supreme Lord as being served by all the Lakshmis. And the Surabhi cows that provide unlimited milk for Krishna and his associates to enjoy. That is a secret of secrets. That is Raja Guyam. That is something that's known for us through this disciplic succession that has appeared now as a result of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spreading of the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga. And it's through this process that one can revive this Sanatana Dharma, or this ever-existing activity that we all do. Sometimes we can be a bit confused about, or feel a bit, depressed that we're engaged in this practice and we're trying very hard, and we know that there's this place that you go to after remembering Krishna at the time of death. You go and appear. You're with Krishna, and you may wish to. You may wish to be there right now. You might think, I have to do all these things to be at this position. You might feel a bit depressed, or you might feel like you're trying to push yourself towards that goal. Welcome. You may sit, or you might come and say hi to Krishna, who's sitting up there, or you can sit wherever you feel comfortable. We're just having a class about the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this practice of Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga, we are engaging in this not particularly, the ultimate goal is actually not particularly to go back or go away from here, from the material world, go away from these sufferings. That's not the actual ultimate aim. The ultimate aim is actually to be to be in service of the Supreme and all of the devotees, all the time. Rupa Goswami mentioned this in the Bhakti Rasamrasa Sindhu, that one who actually is constantly engaged in this bhakti yoga practice, and one who does this anakulyena krishnanushilanam, one which is unmotivated, unattached, one in which has no adulted motivation. Actually, one is already liberated. One is already crossed beyond this ocean of material suffering. One's actually engaged and in connection with the Supreme. And by being in connection with the Supreme, one is already in their constitutional position. One is in their constitutional position by engaging in devotional service. Because you're doing devotional service here, you'll be doing devotional service there. That thing does not change. And it is stated by Sanatana Goswami that if one simply appears before the divine, front of Krishna and says, "My Lord, from this day forth, I am yours. I am yours." Then from that day forth, Krishna will always be with that person, will always be with that devotee. There'll be no leaving that devotee. By just wanting to chant and just say, "Lord, I don't feel like doing this every day. I really don't feel like engaging in this constant practice because it doesn't feel natural to me. I feel like I want to do something different." Just by saying, "I just want to express how much I love you." By this chanting, I just want to express how much I love you. By depending on Krishna, this idea of depending, we have many different words: impending, depending, upending. This word "pend," to be pending. This root word is to hang, to actually hang on something. So when you depend on Krishna, we are catching his dhoti, his cloth, or the soles of his feet, and we're just hanging. We don't worry about any of this, and it's a very difficult thing we can say. I can say it very simply, sitting here. I can say very simply, we should depend on Krishna. But it's a very difficult process for one to actually come to a point where we actually just depend on Krishna, where we just depend, where we know that we're engaged in a process which is meant to remove all these coverings of the heart so we can actually feel true connection and relationship with the divine, connection with others, connection with ourselves. Knowing that this process will gradually takes time to develop that faith or that shraddha, that I'm engaged in this and I am protected. I have structures around me of support such as friends, mentors, teachers. I have those around me that can support me. I can just depend on Krishna. It's a very difficult, it takes time and effort, and it takes a lot of perseverance. But it is a natural occurrence if one is engaged in proper bhakti yoga schedule or a sadhana. If we have this schedule every day, I know that there's these things to do for me to be engaged completely in this process. Because if we switch off for a minute, today I'm going to watch the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Like I'm speaking from experience. I watch something different. Then the mind completely gets turned into another direction. It doesn't have a single focus. It becomes so scattered. And naturally we start thinking of all these other things, and we stop thinking about our relationship, we start thinking about service, and we start thinking that there's different processes, and we start depending on Krishna. There's no way of depending on Krishna. Depending on Krishna, surrendering, this idea, it comes from having a regulated process, which is why a regulated process is prescribed. If we don't have a regulated process, then naturally there's no rules. It's a free-for-all. You can do whatever you want. And then we come back to a position of having kaitav dharma, where we all think what we want to do. I do bhakti this way, Prabhu. I do bhakti that way. I do bhakti this way. And we get back to a position of kaitav dharma. We're all concocting different ways of doing things. That's why Prabhupada instructed a process where we have this morning program here at the temple every day. In the morning, we get up, everyone gets up, the same time as the deities get up. Krishna gets up at 4:30 a.m. We sing here, we do a nice sing for him. We do the morning Mangal Arati prayers. And then for 2 hours, the devotees sit here and chant in connection of the Supreme Lord. For 2 hours, the devotees sit and chant the names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Not as just a ritual, but as a process of these names are non-different from the Supreme. They're intimately connected with the Supreme, so chanting them, one is actually in connection, one is actually speaking with Krishna. One is allowing Krishna to sit in the heart. And then following that, one worships the Guru, the teacher, thanking that Guru and glorifying that Guru for providing us this entire process, for without which we would be quite aimless. And then Kirtan, again glorifying the holy name. And then listening to the glories of devotees and the glories of Krishna. And this way, this process, you can see all of a sudden we're a bit targeted now, we're a bit focused. We'll go about our days. We can now go about and go to work and perform devotional service at work because we'll be thinking of Krishna. You can now go about your day cooking in the kitchen, knowing that all of these things in the morning that have occurred, it will be within you. Krishna's there right now. You won't be thinking about the dream you had last night because this morning program has completely displaced all of that. There's nightmares that we have and there's different things that we have. It's very natural. It's very natural in this process that our old selves sometimes comes to the surface and you remember all these quote-unquote abominable activities we may have performed. Oh, the different things that we've done, embarrassing things. Those things just fade. It's more by a regulated practice. Because one starts to be in connection, just like a radio. You know, when you're tuning a radio and you can, nowadays we don't use radios, but I remember the radio days, you'd hear it and you go, and then you hit the radio and then you can hear it clearly. That's what we're doing every day. When we go to sleep, we enter into a position of the modes of passion and ignorance. Those take over because that's the natural conditioning of ourselves. That's what we've been tapped into. And sleep itself is that mode. And so the radio frequency from each night goes a bit off. And it's due to us in every morning to come here and tune it back. To tune it back. That's why a morning program, an early morning program is the best. When the mode of goodness is the most prominent in the day, we can tune that radio and really tune it quite well. And we can hear that holy name and go really deeply into the practice and feel a connection with Krishna. And our entire day is pervaded by that. We can engage in all of the different activities. We don't need to change what we do. We just have this morning program. We add this morning program. We add Krishna, and everything else becomes full. Without Krishna, everything is zero. But Krishna is the one. You put Krishna in front. If you put the divine in front, then it becomes thousands, millions, billions. But without Krishna, it's a bit difficult. So this Sanatan Dharma, this Krishna consciousness movement is actually inculcating that Sanatan Dharma. There's that Sanatan Dharma beyond in the Paravyoma with the Supreme Lord, but then there's that Sanatan Dharma that which we can awaken within here, right now. Like I was saying, Rupa Goswami, he has said that if we perform this practice again and again, day in, day out, there will be a point where one is practicing without any motivation, without any adulteration, with love. And I yearn for the day where that happens. So thank you very much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. If there's any questions, criticisms, comments, take them. Okay, Hare Krishna. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday, so it's really nice that it came up in the verse. I have so much confusion around Dharma, because it's so funny. It's like whenever somebody comes into contact with anything like semi-Vedic, they're like, oh, this is my Dharma, like, whatever they're doing becomes their Dharma. Is Sanatana Dharma and Dharma different? Is Dharma just materialistic things, and Sanatana Dharma is Krishna-centered, eternal?
That's in like a brief answer, yes. But there's little nuances in between. So you just read the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says one should perform their duties, their prescribed duties, or karma. One should perform their actual karma, their actual prescribed duties. They shouldn't do vik karma or capricious duties, or ones which they've concocted. And so those duties, they are based, or at least the karma that we perform in this body. Because there's only karma within this body, right? There's no karma outside. So, and this idea of dharma is connected with at least the dharma that there's 2 different dharmas that Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about. And I've forgotten the names. I did a class on it before, I should remember it. But there's dharma, which is the eternal dharma, and then there's dharma which occurs throughout this lifetime or lifespan of where one is in the material world. And it's dependent on time, place, circumstances. And that includes what your body is, where you're born, what your mood is. That's why this Varnashram Dharma, there's Varnashram Dharma, and there's Daivi Varnashram, which is one which is performed in this material world, for us to be in a good position in order to perform Krishna consciousness, where society can actually connect together. And that's only in this body, right? In this body you might be a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, various different ones, Shudras. But in the supreme world, the Sanatana Dharma has got nothing to do with that. He's just an associate of Krishna. They're all in Goloka Dham. They're all Vaishyas, but it's not got nothing to do with this idea of Vaishya in the material world. It's a completely different pastime. Sanatan, the relationship is more prominent. That's the Dharma.
So can anything be Dharma?
Can anything be Dharma? No, it's prescribed. It's always prescribed. That's why Prabhupada writes. Before, there was this idea of prescribed wasn't really stated by anyone. Prabhupada wrote the word specifically prescribed because the word is karma. The word used in Bhagavad Gita is karma. And people can just write activities, right? You should do yagya, to perform your karma, you should get rid of your punya, and you should do it. No, Prabhupada said prescribed. Why prescribed? Because it has to be provided by an authority. So what you do in this we have processes or a structure around us that actually supports us so we can know what do we actually do. How do we approach Krishna? How do we arrange our material circumstances so we can approach Krishna? Those are things that are provided by Shiksha Guru, by dear friends or mentors, and then of course our Diksha Guru, who is supervising our spiritual activity, and the material activities which perform a platform for us to engage in Krishna consciousness.
So when it hasn't been prescribed,
that's vikarma, or capricious duty. When it's not prescribed, anything that's not stated in the Vedas for something to do, or prescribed by your spiritual master something to do, is vikarma. A lot of the times, especially in the devotee, we know everyone that a lot of people out there performing vikarma, we know, but a lot of the time in the devotee community, we can also get into a situation where no one's really said anything about this, so that means I can do it, Like this idea of there's many different, I don't want to cause any controversy, but there's many different, no one said really anything about this. But one must always take instruction. Where there is ambiguity, one should take instruction. Hare Krishna. Yes, exactly. In the material sense, he's doing his dharma. And he was going to run away from it, but Krishna engaged him in his dharma. But also, what makes the explanations really difficult is that whenever we speak about Arjuna, Krishna, the Goloka Dham, it's a completely different category. It's a very different category because we know Arjuna isn't actually bewildered, but he's being put into the position to show us how to behave. So the answer is always two. It comes in two. There's the yes for us, and then there's also for Arjuna. He's a liberated soul always. And he's always performing his Sanatana Dharma. There never was a time where he wasn't. Anything else? Hare Krishna. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, Grasim Prabhupada. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.